In this video, and possibly some additional videos, we're going to be talking about how to create a layered depth map. So this is a really cool laser project, but this is definitely an advanced project. So this is something that you probably don't want to mess too much with until you're a little more comfortable with Adobe Illustrator, because the truth is there's no really simple way to do this. There's no like quick, instant, no effort method for creating a laser file from a map unless you can find a vector map already made for you. And there is a way to do that, and I will show you where you can find pre-made maps that you can download, but they're not particularly cheap. So you definitely want to make sure that you have a place that you're going to be able to sell that item to make back that money. So here are some examples of what I've been working on. I'm doing a Sarasota, Florida map because I haven't been able to find a file for it. And I'm going to show you basically step by step how I gather the data for the map, because that is actually the hardest part of the process for me anyway. And then how I convert the map into a multi-layered vector. So we're going to take one quick look at our sort of essentially end file. I'm going to restart over using a different map, but you can see my roads are separate. I have this here. This was just to sort of pad out the road area. And then I actually have each area layered here. So we have all the stuff we need to cut out a really beautiful map. And there's a couple different ways to do it, but in the end, you're going to need to by hand make a decent amount of adjustments, and that's just the nature of this. So let's minimize Illustrator and go to a couple websites that I'm going to show you of where you can start to find this map data. So this one's already open, so we'll actually start here. But the first thing we actually need to find if we're going to do a water-based depth map. Now, this won't necessarily work for a topographic map of like a mountain, say. I don't really know where to find that yet. But if you want to find water, this is where you're going to start. So this is NOAA, and this is the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, and they have a lot of maps. So there are different types of charts, electronic charts, paper charts. I'm actually going to look for a PDF paper chart. So I'm going to click on this tab here, and then I'm going to search for a place. You can search by chart if you actually know the chart number, latitude, longitude, or place name. And I'm going to type in Sarasota, and we're going to see what pops up. So Sarasota, Florida, US. So let's hit submit, and it's going to take us over here and show us that there is a chart for that region. That's chart 11425, and it is available in a PDF. So you can see that there is a chart here, but if you zoom out a little bit, you can see there are additional charts you can select. So for example, this one's 11415, and it's also available in a PDF. So you can kind of click around to find what you're looking for, but this is the one I want because I really want to make sure I get Sarasota Bay, which is right there, and some of the peninsula, well, not peninsula, I guess it's archipelago around it. So I'm going to hit PDF. It's going to open a PDF chart, and we're going to take a look at that really quickly. So, okay, so this is a really, really nice chart here. You can see if we zoom in that this is a high resolution chart, and it does show some of the depths. So we can see that there are some lines that they have in here, but if you really zoom in, you can see that these are all like numbers, and these numbers have to do with the depth. So you could manually walk from like 16, 17, 16, 17 and sort of follow these and create your own lines as well. There's no magical way to convert these other than to hand draw them into your chart, and I am going to show you how to do that. But once we find our depth map, we're just going to download that and save that for later. So this one, Sarasota, Florida, and I'm going to save that to my desktop. So that is where I would go to try and find a map for the water portion. So that's it's a little bit of a challenge. I'm going to hit refresh actually. And then if you come back here, remember you can actually just sort of scroll around or like zoom in to where you're trying to go. So I'm just using my trackpad, 2 fingers, and I'm just zooming in. So I live near the Chesapeake Bay, so I can actually hover over here and try and find a map for the Chesapeake Bay if I'm looking for it. And that looks like probably the ideal one there. If I click it, you can see there's a PDF. I can look at that as well. So there's a lot of different options here, but this is the first place I would look to try and find your aquatic depth map. So that's where I'm going to start. Once I've found the charts I need, I'm going to go to a different place. And so now I can either go to, the first place I might go is map style with google.com. And then I'm actually going to try and find a map here. So I'm going to go back, and then I'm going to search address here, and I'm going to search for Sarasota, Florida, and see where it takes me here. And there we go. Okay, so I'm now in Sarasota, Florida. I want to zoom out a little bit because although Sarasota is kind of like right here, I want the whole of Sarasota Bay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and zoom in and out until I get to kind of the view I want. So I have everything in the field that I need. And then from there, I'm going to do a couple different things. So I first am selecting my map style. And there's a couple different styles here that you can click through. You want one with really good contrast. So it's not necessarily this one. None of these are like ideal. The standard is actually probably the best to start with, but you can go download a map style that someone else has created and then apply it. So let's actually try that really quick. So I'm going to hit import JSON here, and you can paste it in. And there is on this blog, which is linked from my blog, this is another tutorial that covers a lot of this. They offer a map style. So if we go open that, which I already have in my downloads folder, let's go find that. I'm going to open that file. We can copy and paste this in. So this is one method that you can use. I don't think you necessarily have to use it, but it does help if you want to try it. And then you paste that text in, you hit import JSON, and now you have a map style with much better contrast. So you can go find those on the internet, whatever you're looking for. From there, we need to eliminate some of this clutter because we want a really, really clean image of our map so that we can trace it. So first thing first, I'm going to remove all landmarks. So I'm going to drag that down to 0. And I'm going to remove all labels and drag that down to 0. And then I'm going to change my road density, and that will eliminate some of those really tiny roads because they're going to be really hard to trace, and it's going to be kind of difficult to see what's going on. So I think I'm pretty good at that level 3. I'm going to hit finish, and then so I think I can click out here. And then I'm going to go to more options. And here I can turn things on and off as well. So you can see anytime there's a dot, that's something that's turned on. I don't want to see parks, so I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to keep clicking until I get to hidden, and then they're going to disappear. With roads, highways, fine, arterial, local. So let's look at land parcels, and let's see what happens. So that's hidden already, neighborhood, hidden. So basically, I'm just going to try and come through and simplify this as much as possible. So like transit, I don't want any transit. So let me make sure that's all hidden. Water, this is an important one. I want to turn off some of this. So let's see. So you can change your fill and stuff here. So the style that was originally applied, we can adjust that if we need to. But the main key is just that you have good contrast. All my text labels are already missing. So let's see if there's any other things we can adjust here. Landscape. So if I hit landscape hidden, okay, there we go. So you got to play around a little bit to kind of find what you're looking for and turn it on and off. I feel like there should be somewhere in here. So let's hide the water. Okay, so this is one place we're actually going to want to start. So once we have the water hidden, we actually, let's click out of this by clicking back here. Now we have a really nice clean view of just the roads. This is a spot where we're going to want to take a screenshot. So I'm going to hit Command-Shift-4. So you really have to play with it. I'm not super familiar with this map maker, so I don't remember where every setting is, but I want to grab about that much of my map. So that's one. Go back to more options. Let's turn our water pack on because we do want some water. So inherit, color, should be good. And then let's see, what did I turn off? I think I turned off landscape, so let's go back to land, inherit, and there we go. Okay, so there's a lot of different things we can say human-made land, hidden. Okay, so that starts to hide some natural land. Looks like we need to leave that up. Let's go back down. Looks like our water's missing again. Fill, inherit. Okay, there we go. So it looks like I turned off the fill instead of the all. So there we go. Now we can see our land and our water again. Let's take a look and see if there's any other landscape elements. Let's turn terrain off. It's check. Land parcel. It's hidden. Localities. Hidden. Administrative. Let's hide all administrative. Natural. What happens if we hide that? Okay, there we go. So I like that hidden part here under natural landscape because I want to remove all the green and the yellow and all of that. Land cover. Let's see about this one. Nothing really happens there. Terrain is hidden, etc. So I think we have another good shot here. So let's take this one, and I'm going to take now another screenshot. Actually, before I do that, let me eliminate the roads because I want to turn the roads off now that I have a good example of the roads. So let's hide the roads, minimize this, and then come back here and try and take a pretty similarly sized screenshot there. So essentially we just want to keep taking screenshots of the different features. So this is going to give us a really good trace of the water because we have nice clear borders, and then also the land area. We have the one with the road, so we should be good. I think there's a way somewhere to turn off all the rivers, but I can't 100% remember for this one if I can get rid of all the rivers. So we might be a little bit stuck here. Let's turn down our saturation and see, does that fix it? Nope. Okay, so this is kind of the best I'm going to be able to get from map style. There's other places you can find maps, and one of them is Map Creator. So mapcreator.io, online.mapcreator.io, this is a paid service. It has a free service element to it, but in order to directly download the maps, you need to pay, and the plans are not super cheap. It's about $100 per map, or if you're doing tons of maps, it's $700 per month. Now, unless you have a job in which this is something you're doing, I probably would only download a map. You can probably make that money back pretty quickly if you are selling made maps. So it's just something to note that you can download the maps directly, but you do have to pay for them. I'm just going to show you how to use Map Creator for free, and then you can determine whether you want to pay for that service or not. So I'm going to hit search. We're going to search Sarasota, Florida. It's going to take us there, and then same thing. We're going to zoom in and out until we get a similar area, and then I'm going to extend this box as big as possible because I kind of want it out of the way. I'm going to go to my elements list, and then this is the same concept. So a lot of these map services online work like this. So I can turn off boundary labels, I can turn off place names, I can turn off water labels, transport, road name, road numbers, boundary labels, land use, whatever that is, boundary, road bridges. So the bridges actually I want to keep because otherwise I feel like the roads look a little silly here. Construction, rail bridge. Now I can turn on and off roads. I'm going to leave the roads, rail tunnels, etc., etc. Okay, so now we're going to get to the spots where we need to play a little bit with it. So if you click, it will allow you to extend underneath to see our options. So under water, I'm going to turn off lakes because I don't need all of those lakes. I don't want to trace them. It's too much stuff. I'm going to also remove small rivers and small river tunnels. Then from land use, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to turn off parks, stadiums, sand, recreation. I'm just going to keep going through this until I have very, very, very simple map. And there we go. So I basically just want to leave just land because if I turn off land, I don't have anything. Turn off that airport as well. So there we go. So I have just the land visible, just the roads, and then just the larger areas of water. Now the one thing I haven't quite figured out is like, how do I change the colors of these? That might be something that's like a paid service. I'm not 100% sure. You can change the map styles here, but if you do that, it resets everything, and I haven't found any of these other ones to be better than the Map Creator Online, so I'm going to leave that alone. I'm going to go back to my elements list, click it to minimize it, and then I'm going to take my first screenshot of everything together. So we got our water, we got our roads. Now I'm going to come back to the elements list. I'm going to turn off my roads, which are right here. And it looks like there's some road bridges. Okay, I missed the road bridges there. Remove the roads, road bridges, minimize this again. Take another screenshot, just so I have a clean view of just my land and my water. And now I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna turn roads back on. And I do want to turn my road bridges back on because for some reason, like, it creates a little gap there. So we want to leave those. Now I'm going to go turn my land off, or my water off. So let's turn off the water. Yep. And let's turn off land entirely. And now we have a nice, clean, just roads map here. So that's basically how I'm going to go gather my initial data. I'm going to use some form of map wizard or map platform, and there's many of them out there, to get a clean shot of my roads, my land, and my bodies of water. And then anything else you want. So if you wanted parks to trace those or whatever, that's fine too. Once I have those screenshots and I've confirmed that I have the correct NOAA chart here, I can go back into Adobe Illustrator and Photoshop and clean those up and get those moving. So I'm going to minimize this by opening up Photoshop, and you can see I already have, let's exit that, I already have my maps pulled up here. So these were different screenshots, but you get the idea. So here's my land, my water, and my roads. And now I need to play with these and get these to be really high contrast, because although I could immediately trace these here in Illustrator, it's not what I want to do. You can see in this one I don't have my bridges. That's fine, they're not. I'm going to leave it off for the purpose of this. I'm going to, for the first thing, go to create a new filler adjustment layer, and I'm going to hit black and white. So black and white will allow me by color to determine what items become black and what items become white. So I'm going to turn up my yellows. Let's see which direction is going to work best for us. So, all right. So it looks like we'll be better off to go with our yellows being white. Okay, so this allows me to kind of get all of the roads to be one solid color, and I think that looks pretty good. So from there, I'm then going to create another adjustment layer, and I'm going to do brightness and contrast. Let's try that one. And if I up the contrast, that helps a little bit. I'm going to lower my brightness just a little bit, and then one last layer, I'm going to do levels, and I think that will get me to a really nice black and white image. So bring that to black, bring up our whites nice and solid, kind of just closing in these two little sliders here. And then the final thing I'm going to do is, I can see this like little white edge here. I'm just going to get rid of that. So I'm actually just going to crop it out, because I don't really need to go this far south anyway. So done. Otherwise I could erase it, and I may actually choose to do that. So let me get my brush tool, and like if there's any like little areas that you want to clean up, or areas where you need to add a road back in, etc. So for example, if I did want to add this back in, let's make my brush really small. I'm going to make sure the hardness is turned all the way up, and I'm going to make sure that I have white selected by double clicking and dragging up, and then I can actually click, hold the shift key, click, and I can actually clean up some of the roads. So there may be some time where you need to do this. So because I'm missing the land bridges on this sort of main area that goes across this little island chain, barrier islands there, let's clean up this last little spot here. I'm pretty sure it goes that way. I probably need to check my map. But I think that looks good. I'm not worried about any other bridges. I'm happy with that. So from there, I'm going to go to File, Export, Export As. I want the highest resolution possible. A JPEG is fine. Export, and I'm going to put this as roads. BW for black and white. Done. Let's go to this one. And then this one is probably fine as it is because we have a really good contrast between the white and the blue. But I'm going to do the same thing anyway. I'm going to go to black and white. I'm going to tell all the blues and cyans to be dark. And because the other section is white, let's just drag them all there. That's going to work. Let's skip brightness and contrast because we already had good contrast. Instead, I'm going to go to levels. And I'm going to do the same thing. Bring this up to black. Bring my white up. And then either using my brush, I can paint out this section here. Oop, I'm on the wrong layer. Bottom layer. Oop, let's hit X, swap those. So I can just manually fix that if I want to, or I can do what I did in the other one and just very slightly crop it because I don't need that section down there. Done. Now we're going to save this as by exporting. So it used to be save as, and I'm still on that kick. I always forget you have to export now. Resolution all the way up, export, land, water, black and white, and I'm going to save that. So by doing this in Photoshop, you're setting yourself up for success at the next step, which is digitally tracing these images to create the basics of your map. So let's go back into Adobe Illustrator. And you can see I've already sort of done it here, but I'm going to create a whole new document and we're going to start from scratch. So I'm going to hit File, New. I'm going to go with 12 by 20 just because that's the Glowforge artboard size. It doesn't really matter. You can scale this up or down. I'm going to create a new one, and then I have to go to my desktop and drag those maps in. So I'm going to go to desktop. I'm going to find land, water, black and white, drag that in. You can see that has now dropped itself in. It's really large. Leave it like that, and then I'm going to hit roads, black and white, and drag that in. Now we're going to leave these as big as they'll go, so large like this, because the larger they are, the easier it is for image trace to work. So let's start with our land, and by selecting this, and so you can see my screenshots are pretty similar, but we'll get them lined up if they're not perfect. So here we go. We're going to go to image trace and check the drop down, and we're going to go with, we can go black and white, or we can just hit image trace and it's going to go with black and white anyway. And it's going to say, hey, this is going to take a minute. I'm okay with that. I'm going to click OK. And you can see it's already happened. Didn't take as long as it thought. It kind of did it very instantly. But I want to make sure to adjust any areas. You can see I have some like weird artifacts here. So I'm going to click the image trace panel, and I'm just going to play with this until I like it. And it's hard to get a perfect trace. Like the truth is, the best way to do it would be to hand draw it, is to follow over with the pen tool and get it perfect. But that's going to take you a really, really long time. You will have a better result because anyone who really is familiar with this feature is going to typically be able to spot that this is what you did. There's sort of like a look to it when you live trace that's a little obvious. So let's play with the noise. So I'm just going to fiddle with the sliders until I feel good about it. So some of these little islands, I just need to eliminate those, because if I cut that with the laser, those things are just going to fall through the chrome tray and it's just going to burn up. It's just not worth it. We will leave many of these other islands, and I'll explain to you when I get to the actual like depth map part why I'm going to leave them and how I'm going to work with them, because some of these are really small. So we definitely will lose them if we try to cut them out as pieces, but I have kind of a workaround for this. So let's say that that looks pretty good. It's not too crazy. This looks all right. Normally I would tell you to ignore white, but because my water is the dark, I'm going to leave that unchecked, and instead I'm going to hit expand. I now have a nice vector map of these different functions that I can cut in my laser. In this one, so let's double click out. I actually want to probably eliminate the water itself because I don't really need that as it is. I really just need the land right now. We're going to build the water after. So let's double click this to enter into isolation mode. We are now inside the group. Use my magic wand to select all the black areas, hit delete, and then double click out. And that's going to give me this really nice parcel of land, and I can color it any color I want. And it's absolutely going to work here. So we'll just make it orange just so we can really see it. I'm going to go do the same thing here. And the roads seems to me to be the harder part. It just does not want to trace these sometimes. So let's zoom in so we can really look at how this changes. Hit image trace, and we're gonna watch it, and bam. So this one, not too bad. Those look pretty clean. I think we can definitely work with that. So we can play with our threshold here, adjust them a little bit if needed. I find with the roads, you want to up your corners a lot because American town building, we make a lot of rectangles. So I like to turn up the corners so that we have nice clean intersections. Noise, I'll turn down just a little bit. You know, some areas are maybe not perfect, like we don't see the like little loops of these on-ramps, but I'm okay with that. I think this is going to work. I'm happy with that. I'm going to hit expand, and now we have a nice set of roads. But there's a couple I want to probably eliminate, like this little weird road to nowhere that seems to have traced. So let's eliminate our black, color our roads up, and clean them up. So double click to enter the group, magic wand, select the black, and delete. And it looks like we have some little areas around the edge that traced. There's a couple ways to delete these. I think in this case, because I don't want to mess anything up that I have already set, I'm going to go to my delete anchor point tool, which is behind the pen tool, and I'm just going to delete these until they go away. So I'm going to delete points until we get back to where we want to go. And then if you have problems like this, let's stop here. We can always erase that or crop it out. So I'm going to use my erase tool instead, and I'm just going to see if this will let me do it. Okay, that'll work. Because I know I'm going to crop this a little bit, so I'm just going to drag that across to delete this upper portion. Done. Okay, that'll work. Double click out, and now we have a nice vector road map. Let's get that lined up. And I may want to use another map to double check. You can see my screenshots were pretty on point, so they're pretty close. So let's make sure that they're lined up nicely. I think that looks about right. And that's the thing. So when you're creating these as a visual, quote unquote, art piece, your maps are not going to be at the NOAA level of perfection. It's up to you how much time you want to spend hand tracing things and doing that. That's on you. I'm happy with this. It's the feeling of it. It's relatively accurate. If my map is one click over too far or not, no one's using these maps to navigate. It's visual, so I'm okay with this. So I'm going to be fine with how that is. I'm going to select my roads, and I'm going to make them black so we can really see them. And then, as you saw, I can clean up areas. So I can use that eraser tool, which is right here. I can use my direct selection tool to grab any like floaty spots that I need to delete, or I can even come in and connect roads that need to be connected. So in this case, I can click. So let's get really in here so you can see. I can click this little line here and this line and hit Command J, and usually it will join the paths. Or I can do this and just clean up some roads. And if you do that, create little overlaps, just make sure occasionally you take your shape and you refuse it in your Pathfinder. Otherwise, those little overlaps will not laser cut correctly. Now I'm going to take this one step further. In the map file that I want to create, I want to have an option where instead of engraving this whole map, you can use the score function. So let me show you how to do that. I'm going to copy this over by option dragging it. And then to do this, I had to turn it back into a raster graphic, which seems so counterintuitive. But I'm going to click it, hit Object, Rasterize, leave it with a transparent background, and click OK. This is now, once again, a flat map, and as you can see. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click this, and I'm going to go to Image Trace, but I'm going to go to Line Art. And this is going to create only strokes. So let's see what we get from this one. And we may have to play with it. I haven't tested it with this particular map yet. Alright, so that doesn't look great. Let's go to our options and see if playing with our threshold will fix this map. So let's see, because if not, I have another workaround. So that, it helps a little bit. If I bring my threshold down, it looks like it's reconnecting some spots and we're getting some of the missing areas. Alright, it's looking a little better. It's not great. Up my corners. I think what happened is my lines are a little too thin. So let's delete that and try one more time. So this time I'm going to copy it over, and instead I'm actually going to thicken everything by adding a stroke to it until it looks a little thicker. Alright, that's a little heavier. Let's go down 1 point. Okay, that might work a little better. I'm now going to go to Object, Path, Outline Stroke, refuse it in my Pathfinder. You can see this is why it's advanced, because I'm going really quickly through some of these tools here. And now let's try rasterizing it again and seeing if this will look a little better when we line trace it, because these look a little heavier now, so I think it's going to pick them up better. Alright, let's see. So I've got that image trace drop down, line art, and let's see what happens here. It's taking its time. Immediately doesn't look great yet. A couple things I'm going to do. I'm going to up my stroke, and so if you hover this, it tells you the maximum width in pixels that will be recognized and converted to stroke paths. I'm going to set it to 100 and then click out. Let's see if that changes anything. Sometimes it will. You might not get much of a change there, but there's times where that's going to be relevant to you. Yep, okay, so that did make a difference. I'm going to pull my threshold down. Sometimes you have to go up or down. You just got to play with it until it looks right. And this is not going to probably be as perfect as our engraved option, but I like to have it as a choice, and that way we can always test how much longer one takes versus the other. And then we got a lot of disconnected spots here, but we're getting a little bit better. So let's try 24. Alright, that's looking okay. I'm going to up my paths and see where we're at. It's definitely a little bit slow. Okay, so let's say that this is about as good as we're going to get, and we're going to have to manually adjust it. I'm going to hit expand, and then I'm just going to go through and I'm going to show you how one way you can kind of manually fix some of these spots. Now, I don't find this is as workable as the other. Sometimes you'll get a good result, sometimes you won't. But you can select paths. So I can, for example, take my my direct selection tool, so the white arrow, and grab these endpoints and hit Command J, and they'll join. So I can walk through and grab the endpoints of different sections and kind of join them together into single lines. This is very tedious. In all honesty, you would probably still get a better result if you just manually traced all the roads with the pen tool. And we're going to be doing that for the depth map, but that's just an option. So I have created this. If I'm happy enough with this, like for example, I wasn't even planning on using this whole section over here, and this is probably the worst looking area. It doesn't look terrible. It's usable. But that just to show you that you can convert them back to strokes. It's just kind of a pain in the ass. If you up the strokes thickness a little bit, a lot of times that will make them look a little better too. It's just an option. So now that we have this area, I'm going to leave it over here and then copy it, because I always like to copy things when I'm about to make major changes to them so that I can always go back a step if I ruin anything. I'm going to hold shift and scale this down to my artboard, and now I'm going to show you the hard part here. And even though I will eventually crop this, I don't want to do that till the very end so that I have the maximum area to work with. So let's just get that like that. Now we need to do our water, and that is going to require some manual tracing. Sorry, it just is. You're going to struggle to find a depth map ready to go. I have yet to find one. So I'm going to actually go to my layers. I'm going to lock this layer, and I'm going to make a new layer. I don't know if I want it on top or behind it yet. And I'm going to go back to those PDFs that I downloaded before of Sarasota, Florida, and I'm going to drag them in. I actually already saved one. Oops, so let's go see if we can find it in here, and I'm going to show you this one here. So let's zoom in. And so what I basically do is I'm going to get the map. Let's start with this one here. And I'm going to copy and paste it over. You can drag the PDF in or save it as a JPEG and drag it in, but I'm just going to do it like that. I'm going to paste it, and it's going to say an error occurred. Okay, so I got to replace this screenshot, and I got to go find it. So I have it located in here. It's screenshot 0214 5618. Let's see if I can find it. 5618. Where are you at? Screenshot. Alright, probably a little faster if I just click through. Alright, it looks like it's missing. So let's go back. Well, I guess it's working okay as it is, so we'll leave it. If you have links, they kind of matter. So now I have to get this lined up to my map, and you can see I've actually already set the opacity down. When you drag it in, it's going to look like this. Make sure to grab your map, lower the opacity so you can see through it, and then you're going to get it scaled and lined up. So I'm going to go based on this. I'm going to hold shift, and I'm going to try and start scaling and moving until I have a pretty good overlap here. And once again, I'm accepting that this is an artistic rendition of this location, not a true cartographer's masterpiece, and we're just going to have to accept if it's not quite exactly what we need. So that's looking pretty good. I've got like a pretty good coastline here. Let's drag it down. It looks like my scale's still a little off, so let's get that. Alright, it's looking better and better. Okay. That looks pretty good because I can see this road's aligning, this area's aligned, this area's aligned. Way to go. Okay, so now I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to actually lock this layer first. Create a new layer and then zoom in. And you can see that this is like an advanced version of connect the dots. So there are some lines that they've already given you as kind of a layout. I'm going to probably go with those, but you could just manually come through here and trace like 22, 25 and kind of create a range and build your own depth map. So there's a lot of different ways you could do this. You could decide that your areas are from, this looks like 16, I think it's feet, I don't know if it's feet or meters, 16 feet deep to 30 feet, that's going to be one section, and then from 30 feet to 40 feet is another section. It's kind of up to you how you want to do it. For the sake of simplicity here, I'm just going to trace some of the lines that are already there, and I'm going to use my pen tool to do it. So I'm going to grab my pen tool, I'm going to select my stroke, and I'm going to make it a bright color that I'm going to really be able to see on top of this map. So let's go with like a red. Let's make it even brighter red. So bright red. I'm going to be able to see that. And now I'm just going to have to trace step by step across the map. So I'm going to follow my border here of my artboard. And the first one I want to trace is, let's take this like 30-foot-ish design here. And so you're just going to click and drag as you're going. So the pen tool takes a little bit of time to get used to. And by the way, I'm using a trackpad. So if I can do it on a trackpad, you can do it on a trackpad. I'm not even using a mouse. So you're just going to click and drag, and the key to using the pen tool is to click and drag in the direction you want to go next. So if I'm about to turn this way, I kind of want to click and drag that direction. And you want to don't do this like super speedy click, 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 click. You're going to have really ugly lines. Take the time to try to put an anchor point on each time the curve changes. There's very little I can really tell you about this other than it just takes some time to learn this tool. It's kind of a pain in the ass. You can use the pencil tool and a tablet if you can draw directly on your screen or whatever. That's one option. So I will show you that. I'm going to hit escape to exit my pen tool. Let's go to the pencil tool. And now if you're just going to be wild and crazy, you can just pen tool this as well. And this, I'm sure some of you are like, why didn't you do that from the beginning? You can. It's a little challenging on a trackpad, which is why I didn't do it in this case. And so you can just manually follow that, and you're going to get a path. If you have to let go, which I did to scroll down, you can hit, I believe it's option here, and you see how that little thing comes up, and I should be able to continue it. So you see if I hit option and click my endpoint, I can now keep going. I think I have more control with the pen tool But once again, artistic representation of a map, not an accurate map. So I'm sure some of you are offended by that concept, but it is what it is. Click and then keep going. And not perfect. Now, if I went and pulled out my tablet, I could do a far more accurate version of this, but this is just instructional, so we're just going to move along here. And we're going to go quick because nobody wants to sit and watch me trace for 4 years. It's very boring. So let's do this, keep going, scroll, click my endpoint so I reconnect. And we got a nice little weird shape here coming up. All good. So I'm going to only trace 2 depths here because we don't want to sit and watch me do this for a million years. Alright, so there's one. I've got that line, and then I can, like I did before, grab my 2 endpoints and hit Command J and join those. So I joined my pen tool one with my pencil tool. That's our first depth area. Now Sarasota Bay is pretty shallow. I think it only gets to about 12 feet deep anyway. So there's not really like a cool one here, but I have 2 Sarasota maps. If we go back to my other option here, you can see I do have a secondary depth here because there is a second level of depth. It's just barely there. And I had a second map that I used. So let's check out our layers. Let me turn off. There's a couple different maps here. So there's map. There we go. So I had a second NOAA map that does show that there actually is a second layer of depth here. It goes from about 5 feet to 12 feet. I thought it looked nicer to show that, even though now my range is a little odd. So just so you know how I found that, I just used a second map. I lined it up like I did before, and I traced it. Let's go back to our other file here, and then I'm going to go lightning fast. Let's see how fast I can do this one here. So I'm just going to do a very crazy version of this. This is just for instructional purpose so I can show you how to do the next step. Once again, I would take my time if I was going to sell this file to do a much nicer depth map here. And then bam. Okay. So we have now 1, 2, 3 layers of depth in our map. Let's turn off our map and take a look at what we have here. So perfect. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to actually make those different layers. I'm going to go to my rectangle tool. I'm going to swap it to fill. I'm going to change the color to a watery color so we can see what we're doing here. And then I'm going to draw it, in this case, the size of my artboard. I can always crop this art later. I'm going to go to layers, and I want to bring this layer down behind everything, and then set my water to be behind my lines. So right mouse click, arrange, send to back. And now as long as these lines cross over the edge, so they break the shape in some way, what I can do is I can take each line in my rectangle. I'm going to copy my rectangle, and you'll see why in a moment. I'm going to grab my line, my rectangle, go to my Pathfinder, and hit divide. That is going to use my line to slice it. Now I can take my white arrow, delete that portion, and I have layer 1. And it goes, because I made the rectangle go all the way behind, I have a nice solid layer there. I'm going to repaste my rectangle in, and using Command Shift left bracket, send it all the way back, and do the exact same thing again with the other one. And now delete this, and then Command Shift paste again and send that to the back. And now we can't see them because I should have been changing their colors as we went, but we do have them. So let's grab the top layer, let's make it lighter. Let's grab the middle layer, which is right there. Let's make it a little darker, and then let's grab our back layer and let's make that even darker. And now you can see that I have my depths. And that's essentially everything you need to do to create a map. I'm going to show you a couple little finishing elements, such as cropping the map to different shapes. But if we go back to our layers panel, unlock that, you can see we now have a road, our land. Let's move that again. Roads, land, layers of water, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, potentially 6 layers. I'm going to engrave that. Now, before I get to cropping, the one thing I want to mention is working with these little islands. So if you're tedious, you can try to cut these and save them and paste them in place. But some of these are small, y'all, and I am not trying to like burn up these little crispies and find them or whatever. So you could choose to delete them. Once again, artistic interpretation of a map. Or the way I'm going to do it when I create this, and you'll see this in the blog, is I'm actually going to cut this first water layer and the land. I'm going to make them one layer, and then I'm going to score all of this, peel it back, paint the water blue, and that way you'll still see the island as the bare wood, but I don't have to like come and find all these delicate little pieces. I just don't trust that this archipelago is going to hold together in my map. So there's going to be sort of like a little second part of how to do that, but essentially I'm going to combine those into one layer because I'm just not trying to have it. So the way I would probably do that is, let me move my road somewhere else, is to take these 2 layers here, and then I'm going to group them. So let's pull them into their own space just so we can kind of see what I'm going to do here. I'm going to make this orange a little more visible because it's a little hard to see. Let's make it dark. There we go. So yeah, I'm not trying, I think the laser can very comfortably score all of this, but I'm not trying to find all these little pieces in my laser. So from there, I would set this to an outline to score like that. And then I would just delete these 2 rectangle borders here because I don't want to score way out here. That's not worth it to me. So I can actually just click the lines and delete them, or just delete those points. Let's make sure we can see them. They're kind of a little hidden there. I think I got them all. Looks like maybe there's one here, and there might be one here. And let's reselect that. So I'm going to use my magic wand. I'm going to double click, or actually I'm going to double click here, and I need to turn on stroke color and set that to 1 so that when I use my magic wand it'll select by stroke. Otherwise it only selects by fill color. Oh, and so I missed a couple spots. I'm going to take my white arrow, highlight those, delete them, and there we go. So now this layer is going to score all of this body of water, all of the land edge around the body of water. And when I take it out of my laser, it's going to cut this outer edge, score all of this, and then I can peel up the tape where the water is going to be and paint that blue and then leave the bare wood. That's how I'm going to do it, because I think it is way too difficult to try to find all those islands. Now, depending on where your location is, you might not need to do that. Let's bring it back into place. Let's put our roads back where they go. So, oops, come here, roads. Let's get them where we want them. Scoot them. I think they're a little bit up here. So I would probably go back and refer to an actual map. So I could pull back up my my maps here and take a look and kind of make sure I get them aligned. But this will work for the purposes of what you're looking at. So there we go. Those are the basics. I have my archipelago and my shoreline ready to score as the brown layer here. I have my roads ready to engrave, and I have these ready to cut. So from here, the last step, I'm going to create a new artboard. I know this was a long journey that I've taken you on. This is a very long video, but hopefully it will help somebody. I'm going to copy and paste all this, drag it over. Now it's time to crop everything. So the fastest way to do that is just to create a rectangle the size that you want it to be. So in this case, I'd like to make a 12-inch square. So I'm going to click once, hit 12, and 12 since I'm already set to inches. Bam. And then I'm going to figure out where I want it to be. And I don't really need, these roads are not interesting. It's all about the water here. So I'm going to bring it kind of around here, grab everything, and hit make clipping mask. That's going to crop it. all of the data is still hidden back there though. So if I kind of click in here, you can see inside the clipping mask, everything's still there. Our platform, Glowforge, does not recognize clipping masks. So we need to actually crop the section there. And it looks like I have a little bit of land that I don't want. So I'm gonna undo it. I'm actually gonna scale this down because we can always scale it back up. Re-grab everything, make clipping mask, and then I'm gonna go back to my Pathfinder and I'm gonna hit crop. And what that's going to do, now with these lines here, it kind of deleted them, so we're gonna have to do this individually. But when you crop, so let's actually grab those guys out. I'll copy them, paste them in place. They're no longer part of the clipping mask, but we'll deal with those in a moment. So this here, once again, let's select our clipping mask section. Oh, I pasted them in the wrong spot. All right, so I'm gonna click out, Command Shift V to paste in place so that they're in the right spot. Grab my clipping mask group, hit crop, and now you will see it cropped those shapes inside so that they are only what was visible. Now, I typically am not going to crop it as a group like that. I just wanted to kind of show you how it worked. I'm going to crop each layer individually, and this is how I would do it. So let's go back. Once I have this in place, I'm actually going to individually select each layer and crop it, and that's going to give me a little bit better of a result. So I'm going to grab my rectangle, I'm going to copy it so I have it exactly where it is, grab the roads, hit crop, bam, that's crop one. I'm going to hit Command Shift V to paste in place. You can also go to Edit, Paste in Place, and that way it's going to paste it exactly where it was. Grab the rectangle and the next layer, hit crop. Do that again, Command Shift V, grab the next layer, crop, Command Shift V, grab the final layer, crop, and then I just got to move them back into order. So I'm just hitting Command Shift left bracket to like push stuff back until I get where I want. So I'm gonna grab both of those, push those back. Okay, perfect. Now I actually have exactly what I was looking for. So I have these nice cropped layers, they're all aligned. The last one that I need to crop is this one. And because it is strokes, not fills, they're not closed shapes, the crop function wasn't gonna work. So instead, I actually don't have a problem if it scores a little bit past the edge, but if I do, I can just use my eraser tool and cut that little bit off. I like it to go just a teeny bit past anyway, because that's going to make it, yeah, those are fine. I'm going to leave those. I'm okay with that. And now this is essentially my file. So this plus this plus this is one layer. Command G to group. That's one function. This is layer 2, and that's layer 3. And all I would have to do now is upload these to the Glowforge, and they would be easy to set. So I'm actually going to take my waters though, double click to enter the group, double click to enter here. And if you set those to stroke, it'll automatically understand that those need to be cut versus trying to engrave this would not be, not be a good day. So we'll do that, and then same here. So if you get a little bit of an error here, and this sometimes happens when you're using all those Pathfinder tools. So when I click this, instead of telling me it's this light teal, it's saying, hey, there's multiple styles in here. Sometimes when you use the crop function, it actually makes multiple shapes, and I can't really find them, but if I select my shape, and you can see how it's telling me that it's this color, I'm going to copy it, hit delete, and I can see, okay, so there was an invisible shape there. Now I can just double click out and paste that shape. So if you find that you're getting like invisible shapes, and it looks like it even did it here, because instead of just showing me a 12 by 12 rectangle, if I come in here, copy and delete, there's probably some invisible shape there. Up there is the invisible shape, and paste. This one was an easy layer. I probably should have just made a 12 by 12 rectangle, but you get the idea. So same thing in this one. I guarantee there's probably an invisible shape hidden here. So let's grab this, copy, delete. Oh, there's the invisible shape. Click and delete that, paste that in place, and then regroup these and we should be good. Well, we may have to do it with this layer too. So let's check this layer. Oh, it's not showing it as a black layer. So double click to enter isolation mode. Use my magic wand to select all of the black, copy, delete, and look at that. It's an invisible counter shape. Delete, double click to exit, paste, regroup. I know that was a little confusing, but it's definitely something that sometimes happens with the crop tool, because it cropped it, and then the part that had no fill, it kept that as a separate shape. And if you don't delete those, you may have issues when you go into your laser to cut, because it may try to cut those shapes, or it may see them and counteract your shape. So it may cause some problems. But that's essentially all we would need to make our map. So we have our layer 1, our layer 2, and our layer 3. And now we just need to put those into a file and bring them into our laser interface. So you can crop it different ways. So I may create a second version of this that I crop in a rectangle, since I have a square here. But I know that was a lot of content, but hopefully that will help you with every detail of how I create a laser map. So consider it a full class instruction on how to do that. But if you go to the blog, you're going to see the next steps of how I actually assemble it, as well as maybe some additional tips. If you have questions or some elements of this were not clear, let me know, and I will try to address them in some follow-up information in the blog. So good luck with your maps, y'all. It's a long process, but you can definitely do it.